So a part of what the Freemans, what they taught. So they did the 3 skills that make or break relationships. That was the topic. But what I want to talk about is a portion of it where they call it the conflict cycle, and it starts with a triggering event. And by the way, this can apply to any relationship. This is not, just if you're married. And it was fun because Amy was there too, so we both got to experience this. We were all joking about like how this was like therapy. It really was it was a lot of fun. But they talk about how this all starts with like a triggering event, which is always the result of an unmet need. Okay, that was an important part of what they pointed out. There's a triggering event, which is the result of an unmet need. And what you have is you have the trigger, okay, which is it's based on some sort of core fear typically. And kind of like think of this when it comes to the cycle as a circle, okay? There's no if you're just listening to this, I don't have any diagrams on the screen or anything. I'm not going to show any diagrams. But just imagine a circle. And so it starts with that trigger. And so the husband's triggers, it's got they've got their core fears, and they have this on the chart. They start with the husband. It could be a friend, it could be the wife, it could be whatever. But in this situation, let's say you have this unmet need, and then which triggers the core fears of the husband, and then the husband reacts in a certain way, and then you've got the wife's triggers, so it triggers her core fears. And then she reacts in a certain way, her typical way, and it just spirals and spirals. And they talked about how, like, have you ever been like in an argument, and then all of a sudden it just out of nowhere gets out of control? And I think, unless you're extremely rare, you've probably had that sort of an experience before. And the whole idea of this, the whole exercise of this is getting out of this cycle, finding a way to break this conflict cycle. And so I'm going to talk about some of the core fears. I'm going to talk about some of the default patterns, some of the, which are like the reactions that we typically have, and I'm going to do my best to explain it. They're the pros. Like that's their entire job at this point in their lives, where all they do is they help people with relationships. But so, for example, we talked about how there's that triggering event because of some sort of unmet need, and maybe the husband feels rejected, and I'm listing some of the ones that are on the core fears, or they said the most common ones, not the husband not feeling good enough. Or maybe the husband's feeling humiliated. Like, these are some of the core fears. And then the way the husband reacts, their default reaction might be maybe they'll stonewall, or they'll withdraw from the conversation or shut down. Or maybe they'll be passive aggressive. That could be one of them. Or maybe they'll attack, right? Maybe that's something where, not physically attack, but verbally attack. Or maybe they'll criticize. Like, that's the reaction. And then what happens then is that triggers a core fear in the wife, where maybe she feels controlled, or maybe she's feeling unloved. These are some of her core fears. Or maybe she feels insignificant, or she feels alone, right? And I'm just kind of picking random ones that I'm seeing on this list. There's like 30 of each of these. And so then the wife reacts. Right? Maybe the wife feels, provoked, or maybe she feels that the husband is exaggerating and she doesn't like that, or maybe what she'll do, or maybe she'll exaggerate, or maybe she'll, rewrite history a little bit. Right? These could be some of her default reactions. And so what happens is it just keeps going. And if you don't have some sort of off ramp, what happens is it spirals, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And so what you have to do is you have to find a way to self-regulate. So you have to be able to identify. You have to be able to identify that it's happening. Okay, and you have to break the cycle. Okay, and that's the gist of what I want to talk about today. Is you have to notice it, and no matter how much you want to keep going with it, because we all have our core fears and we all have our typical way of we react. But what we have to do is we have to break that cycle and do something that we don't normally do. And that can be really hard.